This incredible touring car marked the height of the French automobile industry before disappearing for almost 40 years. What happened next? Find out on One of a Kind, now. In 1933, two things were clear. One, the world automotive stage was a place for boundless creativity, extreme elegance, and breathtaking beauty. Two, at the center of this burgeoning automotive renaissance was the nation of France. History has a way of derailing the best laid plans. If there hadn't been a Great Depression, if there hadn't been a devastating world war, the French automotive industry might still lead the world in elegance and creativity. All we have left are hints of what could have been. No car more exemplifies the height of French automotive culture than this 1933 Delage D8S.
The world was in an economic upset. In 1929, the American stock market crashed, but it took a year or so for it to hit Europe, and it basically devastated some of these economies. Everything was kind of slow, and money was precious. The greatest cars came out of this turmoil, and rich people would be driving them around, and people became attracted to it, and it took their mind off the very difficult times.
The Delage car in the 30s was a very exclusive car. There is a saying attributed to some humorist that in France in those days, one drove a Fiat, but he gave a Delage to his mistress.
In 1930, Delage made some adjustments to the D8, resulting in the D8S. But the new car was not simply a different version. In many respects, it was a completely different car. At the same time that Delage was working on the D8S, its engineering team was working on a new engine to be used in military aircraft. Delage used the lessons from one engine to make refinements to the other.
But this particular car and this particular engine is unique in that in the era, Delage was trying to build airplane engines. And so this particular engine has some unique features.
The performance of this car was something to brag about. It set a world record going 91 miles an hour for quite a long time. And this was a car in 1933 over roads that were pretty marginal. They didn't have the expressway, and they were going like 100 miles an hour. So the suspension had to be really good, strong, and reliable. And people liked the car because it was on a sur-base chassis, which means a lower chassis, a shorter chassis. And it had the same motor as the record car. So the D8S motor was 170 horsepower, a big straight eight. This was an incredible engine, and it was very sophisticated for its time.
Although the car was a technical masterpiece, it wasn't the hot seller they'd been hoping for. In the difficult economic environment of the 1930s, Delage was having trouble selling enough D8Ss. But instead of cutting their prices, they doubled down.
The D8S was race bred. They decided to pump up the company from 1931 to 1933. They went out and did time distance rallies and set many world records for time distance, time on the track, and it got the public really excited. And they were doing everything they could to promote that brand because by the time 1933 rolled around, it was a difficult market to find a customer that could afford their car. They cost 20 times more than the average car.
What makes this particular Delage D8S so special is the coachwork by one of the premier coach factories of the pre-war era, De Villars.
We think it was a marketing idea that the Delage and the De Villars cooperated on to build this unique body.
This Delage chassis is a pure piece of excellent coach building. De Villars only made 25 chassis a year, and they're one of the few companies to always make money. They've made some of the finest cars ever on Delage chassis, and Mercedes, they were very famous for what they did, and they did it just wonderfully. The seam work on this car is flawless. The balance and the curved shapes are typical of French design.
The elegant design makes the most of the low chassis with a relatively long bonnet and a very low raked windshield. The car was the centerpiece of the 1934 Paris Auto Show, attracting car enthusiasts from all over the world.
Why Delage was so successful on the D8S was all the coach builders loved the proportion of the chassis. There was a special relationship between the height of the radiator, the length of the firewall, and the strength of the chassis. And this Delage D8S had one of the most desirable combinations that just enticed the coach builder.
But at the end of the 1950s, the car simply disappeared. For the next 40 years, the location and even the existence of this incredible car remained a mystery to anyone outside a chosen few. What happened to this incredible Delage D8S for 40 years? And what happened when it was rediscovered? Find out right after this. Needing a shot in the arm to sell their Delage D8S series during a difficult economic time, in 1933, Delage created the ultimate D8S. Using De Villars coach builders and incredibly detailed craftsmanship, this Delage D8S was the toast of the Paris Auto Show. But after a series of owners and a tour as a courtesy car for a luxury Madrid hotel, this car vanished from history for over 40 years.
Most luxury cars of the period disappeared during the war. People hid their cars, their wine, they hid just about everything. That's why we're so fortunate that most of the cool show cars like this one survive today.
In the late 1990s, the Delage was discovered in storage, a virtual time capsule from another age. Astonishingly, the car retained its original drivetrain, chassis, instruments, and other components. But other aspects of the car weren't so pristine. It had been painted red, the fenders had been reshaped, the bumpers were changed, and the original body moldings had been changed from concave to convex.
The chroming on this car is quite unusual because most chrome is convex. This is concave, and we discovered it when we peeled the old off of the car. All the wood was carved in this concave way, and so we chromed it.
The Delage's new owner was dedicated to restoring it to its original grandeur, including finding the precise color of white that was used when it was showcased at the Paris Auto Show. The restoring team took painstaking steps to ensure that each part of the original was restored to its former glory, even down to the wooden interior trim and the door caps at the top of the dash.
The restoration of the car was, I think it took a little bit less than 3 years.
Restored to its original white, the Delage revealed details that the red coloring obscured. The white brings out the chrome body molding and hood character lines.
It's a very powerful car. The restoration was done so accurately and even acutely that this car is extremely reliable.
The thing that's interesting about the Delage is everything is in balance. The engine is a very powerful, very fast touring car. It's got a low-to-the-ground Sur-base chassis with coachwork that's light. That handles really well. Driving is easy. The brakes on a Delage are fantastic for the time. And it's the combination of everything that makes it just special. When you sit down in this car and you put your feet down, you look out the window, just a smile comes to your face. It just brings out that special feeling, a feeling of elegance, a feeling of presence that very few cars and coachwork have.
Once the Delage D8S was fully restored, its new owner realized he had something special. So it was no surprise when the car started winning some of the most prestigious awards in the world, picking up right where it left off in 1933. The Delage D8S is more than just a time capsule. It's a glimpse of what might have been had the French automotive industry been allowed to thrive.
The French automobile industry sort of atrophied after the war. There is Peugeot and Citroën, but all the other cars kind of went away.
But the Delage D8S never went away. And as more and more people know about it, the more they realize its unique place in automotive history.
I'm pretty sure that history hasn't yet been written on this car. It is a premier car, both from the standpoint of Delage, the mechanical aspect of it, and it's a special car as it relates to the De Villars Coachwork Company.
Where is the rightful place in history for this one-of-a-kind version of the Delage D8S? We'll find out right after this. Discovered after 40 years in storage, this Delage D8S represents the height of French automotive elegance and style. In fact, since its discovery, the automotive industry has had to rewrite some of its history books to accommodate the Delage's unique place in it.
I think it is such a unique car under the hood, and the body is so unique. As it becomes more well-known, it will be regarded, I think, as the ultimate for French cars in that era.
The Delage D8S represented the high point for an entire car culture that has been lost to history. It provides us with a tantalizing glimpse of the creativity and innovation of France's pre-war car industry. The Delage D8S stands tall as one of the most incredible luxury cars ever built and is absolutely one of a kind.